Hello, everybody, and welcome. Very excited to do this as our first complimentary client training, group training. So we've been working really hard to put this together and really excited to see how many people are joining us today. Again, as Keturah said, I want to reiterate there will be time for Q&A at the end, and all of that, this is being recorded, and your Q&A will be available as well. So if you can't stay past an hour for the Q&A session, you'll be able to follow up with that after. So I'm going to get started. Again, our first topic that we decided to go with is designing dashboards with business intelligence. So what will you learn in the next hour? The first one is how to avoid this response when explaining your design choices to your colleagues. And also maybe a little more clarity in your process than this. So we've all had process issues, and sometimes we can't really explain to people what our process is. So hopefully you'll get a little more clarity in what could be your process by looking up the process we take here at JCA. And of course, one of the big ones, avoiding your dashboards being interpreted like this. I've had many times when I've seen a visualization on a presentation that I'm like, I have no clue what that says, but it looks pretty. But we don't want it to just look pretty or cool. We want it to have meaning and make sense. So our topics are, why do you keep asking me that question? Ooh, pretty graphics, and look what I made for you. Also known as, in tech speak, requirement solicitation and functional specification, technical specification and dashboard development, dashboard review and acceptance. And we're going to focus primarily on number 2, but I wanted to get the whole process covered. So moving on to, why do you keep asking me that question? So the first step in the process is actually requirement elicitation. Requirement elicitation is the practice of researching and discovering the requirements of a system from users, customers, and stakeholders. In this case, the system is the dashboard. So what are their dashboard requirements? And the users, customers, and stakeholders are the audience, or who's going to consume and use those dashboards. The requirements elicitation is a new fancy preferred term for requirements gathering. About 20 years ago, they just called it requirements gathering. Now they like to say elicitation. Many groups find this to be a very painful process, but it really doesn't have to be. You can really help them to make it painless. Remember, everyone has questions based on data, and they may not realize that those questions are the requirements. So that's what we're looking at in requirement solicitation. What are their questions? What do they need from the data? So there's some do's in gathering requirements. One of the first ones, which took me a long time to realize, to explain with people, is that you need to listen without judgment or challenge. Okay, it's active listening, though. It doesn't mean that you don't ask questions. You want to ask questions. You want to ask why. Why do they do that? How do they do that? What's the operation? But let them know that you're not asking because you're challenging what they're doing. You're asking because you want to know what they're doing, what they actually need. You're trying to get more information. All right. The second one is focus on the need, not the solution. The need is, I need to track my capital campaign. I need to track it to goal. The solution is a dashboard. At this stage in gathering requirements, you don't want to be focused on the solution. You don't want to write down, I want a bar chart that tells me my level to campaign. You simply want to say, I need to track my campaign. All right. Similar to that, stay out of the weeds. It's very easy at this point for someone to take you into the weeds and go into all of the detail and all of the anomalies and so forth. But what you're really trying to get is the high level functional need, not the detailed technical. So stay out of that. That's what can make it very painful. That's where people will tune out in a meeting. And just remind people that comes in another stage. There's plenty of time to go into the weeds, but not at this point. All right. Document, document, document. When you're doing gathering requirements, the easiest way to do it that I found is to have a brainstorming session with the team who has a dashboard that they need, and have each person write down metrics that they're looking for in their dashboard on a sticky pad. They can write as many as they want, stick them up on the wall, and start, filtering through them. All right. So some of the things that you'd need to know, some requirements, examples. Our major giving officer needs to know how close they are to meeting the monthly goal. How is the capital campaign progressing? How many members are currently active? Is this more than last year? And do we know how many people buy new memberships instead of just purchasing general admission on site? So these are all examples of things people need to know. Okay. Notice again, they're not saying it's a bar chart. They're not saying it's a line chart. They're not saying, designing anything at this point. They're just saying, what do they need to track? And of course, this can get much more detailed than this, but it's the starting point. All right. So you're ready to move on when you look like this. You got all those sticky notes, you're covered up on them, you're ready to move on. But before you do that, you want to prioritize and set targets. So sort and prioritize, take the sticky notes and work through them and decide, is this detail information? Maybe the detail information is best for operations. Is this an executive summary? Does it need to go out quarterly, monthly, and weekly? Okay, so you want to sort them and group them. That'll kind of make an idea of dashboards if you end up having more than one come out of this brainstorming session. And then you want to prioritize. It's easier to prove detail first and then summarize, as opposed to finding a high-level summary and then backfilling the detail. Okay, so it's a lot easier to prove down to the penny that you gave 5 cents back and change than if there's 100 transactions and you're totaling them up. So detail, I always recommend that you make your detailed dashboards first and then build the summaries and executive summaries on top of that. And then set expectations on next step. Was anything discovered that needs more investigation or operational change? And what will be delivered first and how soon? So that's the target. When are you going to get it to them for QA? When are you going to do the next steps for technical specification? And what should they expect coming next? All right. But before you move on, document it. Okay. Finally, make sure to write a functional specification. Again, a functional specification is not the how. The easiest way to look at it is focusing on the 5 W's, the same ones that you have for journalism. Who, what, when, where, why. In the dashboard world, who is the audience, such as accounting, operations, development? What is the business operation? We're tracking the capital campaign. We're looking at membership activity. When is the dashboard frequency? They're going to look at it yearly, quarterly, monthly, daily. Where is the distribution method? Is it going to be logged in on the dashboard? Are they going to go an email with PDF, maybe log in through the Sisense mobile app? And the why, the business case, the metrics, and that's where you might have quite a few whys in there. To judge the success of the campaign, to monitor conversion rate. All right. You want to make a template with, you can hand off some of this work by making a template with samples and training your colleagues to fill out the first draft of the document. Sometimes that's one of the easiest ways to get this kick started. If you don't, particularly if you don't have time for a post-it note session, you can have a document and say, here, fill out these, the who, what, when, where, why. Here's an example, hand it back, and then we'll meet and discuss it and get it filled out even more. Again, keep it simple. Don't focus on the how. The how comes later. All right. So for this training, we've been tasked with creating a membership dashboard. And so the who is a membership director. The what is membership activity. The when is looking at yearly and monthly membership sales. So they'll look at this at a yearly, but also throughout the year on a month-by-month basis. Where they're going to have a dashboard and an email with a PDF sent out to the membership director. And why? To judge success of membership renewals, sales, and engagement. Okay, so there's 3 different points that they want to look at: renewal, sales, and engagement. All right. So, but before we move on to the next subject, I want us to stop. And key takeaways: collaborate with your colleagues. They have needs. You guys have answers. Listen without judgment or challenge. Keep the focus on requirements, not solution. Ask questions. Document, prioritize, and set expectations. So whenever someone yells stop, in this stage, you should collaborate and listen. In the first stage, there's time for hammer time later. So that's the first part. It's the creative part. You're getting the 5 W's answered. You're building teamwork. The next is we're ready to move on to the pretty graphics, the fun part, the part where you're going to start moving and being in front of the dashboard. So we need to look at technical specification and dashboard design. So before you sit down to answers, you want to get the facts, just the facts. You need to locate and document the data. Now, in some cases, I know some of you are the end user and the dashboard creator and the DBA and everything all in one. And in other cases, some of you are just DBAs who are representing dashboards for colleagues, and they're the specialists in how things are configured. So in the end, what I recommend is that you invite your colleagues for a show and tell of how they collect the information. And I know I've been on many show and tells with a lot of you where you've shown me how you were collecting your data, and I could help figure out where that is in the warehouse. So if you don't know, it's really good to just, sit down, set up a go-to meeting, go into their office if you're local, and say, show me where you put the information, because you're going to see things. For example, they may say, I want a personal contact, and you're like, okay, but I type into the data dictionary personal contact, and there is no field in Raiser's Edge called personal contact. So they show you, and they say, oh, well, I make an action, and I put the action type to meeting, and then I put an attribute of face-to-face equals true, and that's what my personal contact is. Well, then you have more information there. Now you know that it's an action type, and an action attribute are what make up that. And so you can then go look in the data warehouse dictionary and the ElastiCube and find out if you have that information. Once you've got that, identify if there's any data missing, okay? So again, look for the fields in the ElastiCube and Data Warehouse Dictionary. Remember that the ElastiCube has less fields than the Data Warehouse. So for the example I just gave you, we would have to do a small configuration, and that can be your DBA or JCA. We'd have to do a small configuration because they need to pull that attribute to make sure that it says personal contact. All right. If you can't find the data in any of these, whether you think it should be there or not, or your searching is just not finding it, contact JCA. Sometimes as DBAs, we've been writing from the source database, and the source database may say account ID NO, but the front end says user code, and so we call it an answers user code. That's not something you may necessarily know, and so we're happy to send you email about what the source is of fields and where to find the information you need. All right, customize answers if needed, and at this stage, let your coworkers know, hey, we need to make a little tweaks to get all this information in there. So once you have that documented, though, it's time to design. That's the fun part. So I have a 3-step process that I recommend that has really helped speed up and simplify the design process. And that is to prove the data is correct, choose visualizations, and then lay out your dashboard for impact. Okay. And these are particularly the prove. is one that I found that a lot of people skip. So I'm gonna show you that process and the why behind it. Okay. So the very first thing you need to do is prove the data is correct. I'll show you this in a minute, but you want to create a dashboard that will serve as your proof. Many of you guys have received these dashboards for me. They're very boring. They only have pivot widgets. The reason is pivot are the closest to the format your colleagues are used to seeing if they've been working in Excel or getting just a simple table format report. Pivots also load a large amount of detail faster than the other widgets, so you don't have to wait as long for it to generate a color or a dot on a map. And the pivots allow you to see your calculations side by side as you build formulas. I still, to this day, pull out a calculator and I'll see quantity amount, and I'll have an equation of per cap, and I will sit in the calculator and type in the numbers and make sure that that per cap is actually calculating what I expected. All right. You want to present these details to your team before moving to the next step. So I'm going to show you the proof dashboard that I created for our case here. So we mentioned again that we're going to do a membership. Eventually it was named the annual membership analysis, and I simply just called it annual membership analysis pivots. Okay, that's how I know this is my boring dashboard that I'm not presenting on. Also point out that I'm logged in as myself. Okay, so I'm logged in as Alexis Sykett. I'm going to design all of this, and later when we go live, you'll see pushing it to production. So I'm logged in, and here I've gone through, and I have a simple chart that's getting total passes, new passes, renew and upgrade, total passes last year. And all of those are columns. These three here are different formulas, quantity filtered by a specific item kind. Okay, total passes is item kind, renewal, upgrade, and new pass. This is a Galaxy source database for any of our Raiser's Edge only clients. And then new passes, which is just those where it's new, renew and upgrade, where it's just renew and upgrade. Total passes last year, which is a neat little function, by the way, past year, total quantity, where the item kind is again, renewal, upgrade, pass, and new pass, so all passes. And then my retention rate. All right, so my retention rate is new passes this year to all passes last year. And of course, your retention rate can be very unique, set up just by you. This is for this case is the formula that we used. All right. So I have that side by side, so I can type into my calculator 7051 divided by 16693 equals 57.75%. I can also start looking at turning things into currency or percentage. All right. I went through and I got monthly sales by pass kind. So I have the month and transaction date. The item name is the pass kind in this case, quantity and amount. Sales by pass kind. Membership engagement, which is the sale of any tickets where it says member, the quantity and amount. And then I also calculated what the concept of on-site conversion rate was by month. So in this case, again, sale on-site, this is transaction date. New passes, which is that quantity of passes sold. General admission, which is filtered by a definition of the category, that those are general admission, because in Galaxy you can sell event tickets and so forth, and we're really just trying to see who came into the park that day. And then our on-site conversion is new passes divided by new passes plus general admission. And I'm focusing it on agency, on the location. So I've built out all of this information. And this is something I can then take to the membership director and say, hey, these are my numbers. Do they look right? Anything really wrong? And it's at this time that people really are going to dig into the data. So don't skip this step. It's not pretty, but it is very important. All right. So again, not pretty, but it's so detailed. All right. But wait, what if I can't prove the data? This is one of the keys. Don't be surprised if you notice errors in the data at this stage. Okay. There really are a lot of reasons for data error. We actually just wrote a blog post on it, so you can go hunt that down if you didn't read it already. But some of them are, inaccurate data entry. People had typos and it's a blank field or that they have to type in, or an attribute wasn't added. Okay. Misinterpreted or vaguely documented operations. Again, don't put any judgment on yourself or your colleagues for the documentation or the interpretation of it. It just may not have gotten all there at the time, and things come up and people remember, oh, I forgot this particular note for you. And of course, end user error. You might have filtered incorrectly or created the formula incorrectly. Because you have this all there, you can easily say, well, this is how I calculated. My retention is new passes divided by all of the passes last year. And the membership director may say, oh, no, that's not how we calculate retention. This is how we calculate it, and then you can go back. So reach out to your colleagues armed with the details in your Pivot dashboard and work together to find the solution and build trust in that data. All right. So you've got your proof, you trust the data, all of your formulas are working out, you're ready to move on. Now it's time to visualize. And the cool thing is you can keep that proof and you can use as a tool for visualization. So I'm going to have you create a new dashboard, and I'll show you this, and open your Pivot version of the dashboard. You can select the widget you want to visualize and drag and drop it onto the new dashboard to make a copy. This way you can play around with visualizations and you don't have to worry about losing the original calculations because they're always in that dashboard that's called pivots, okay? And if you make a mistake in a visualization, you just copy the pivot from the Pivot dashboard again and start over with your visualization. So a little hands-on to show you this. I'm going to make a new dashboard here. And it'll automatically go here. Now it'll copy the widget, it doesn't copy the top level filters. There's that. Should not happen. My computer is plugged in. One moment for the technical adjustment here. All right. Can you guys see my dashboard, Katura? Or see the dashboard? Can you hear me at all? Okay, sorry. Can anyone hear me, or did I lose the audio? Okay, great. And you can still see the dashboard, Katura? All right, my apologies for that. Don't know why my computer decided to not like me.
I'm sorry, Alexis, it looks great
That's
now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Sorry for that interruption. So you've got your blank, and the only thing it doesn't copy over from the pivots is the dashboard filters. So I do know that I need a dashboard level filter. So I'm going to put that in here quickly. Transaction date, time frame of last year. Okay. So then I can go over to my pivots dashboard, has all my calculations. And I'm going to start by these top ones here. These are some key indicators that I want to look at. And I just left click with my mouse to take a hold of that as if I'm dragging around the dashboard. And I hover over that blank dashboard I made. You'll see a little grid and a plus sign. And I let go. And now if I go back to my final, there's that single widget. All right. So you can drag and drop from one. If I go back into pivots, you'll see it made a copy. I didn't move it. Past sales by sales year is still here, but it made a copy of that single widget on the final dashboard. Now, alternatively, you could just copy the entire pivots dashboard, make a duplicate of it, and then delete and edit, but I find this allows me to focus in on one widget at a time. So I want to break this up into indicators. I don't want just a bar chart or a pivot across bar. I want each of these to be indicators. So I'm going to start by editing this. And I can easily just change to an indicator. Now, whenever you change your visualization, the visualization will choose what it thinks you want to do with the values. So if you remember, I had total passes, new passes, renewed, and upgrade passes, passes last year's, and retention rate. And I also had the category of transaction date. Well, the indicator only has values and secondary. So it took my first two values and applied it in that order. You'll also notice that if I go back to pivot, I've lost all of those other data. This is why it's useful to have the pivot to copy and paste. All right. I'm going to go back to that, and I don't really want the new passes underneath. I'm just going to do total passes. So I cleared out the secondary and hit apply. All right. Then I go again back over to my pivot, drag and drop to final. Okay. And edit. And I could change to pivot. The other option though is I don't want to lose everything else. So I want to do new passes now. So the easiest thing for me to do is to delete and or toggle off, whichever I choose to do. Both work. But I want to say, I just want new passes. Okay, so you can toggle or trash the measure. Switch to my indicator. And there's my new passes. Okay. I'm going to do this one more time, get that retention rate, and then I'm going to move on to another visualization. 3 times the charm. Okay. So at this point, all I care about is the visualization. I don't have to worry about the calculations. I know the calculations are correct. Next, but I have my visualizations. I have my 3 widgets there. All right. Before I add more, I'm going to talk a little bit about visualizations here. There we go. Sorry. Okay. So visualizing. There are different widget types to present data for different purposes, okay? These are just some simple ways that you can think about it. If you're comparing values, you want to try a column chart. If you're looking for distribution, try a scatter plot. If you're looking for the composition of a group, try a pie chart. If you're identifying trends in sales, try a line chart. And if you're looking for where in the world people are, try a scatter map. Now, I do best looking at these sort of simple terms, but there's an entire science out there on what charts to use, and there's a lot of tools. So some online sources that we provide some links to some of the sources I go to and I refer to, and I'm sitting there going, how should I visualize this? How should I put it in there? Okay. In addition, Sisense provides some they provide all their widgets, of course. They have some sample dashboards, and I pulled some of these visualizations off for the dashboards just to show you. So again, a key metric, you'd want to use an indicator. The indicator can also be a gauge, so it's really good for to-goal things. Composition, your pie chart. Comparison, your bar chart, so seeing how age 19 to 24 compares to 0 to 18 with their sales. Trends, commonly done in line charts, and area maps. So these are all built-in default widgets available. All right. So I'm going to go back to my membership pivot, and I'm going to look at my next one, which is monthly sales by pass kind. So I'm doing a comparison of items month over month, and that sort of seems to be a trend that I'm looking at. So I'm going to copy that pivot over again, because I trust my numbers. And since it's a trend, I'm going to go with a line chart. I can edit this. And I know that the main trend is looking at month over month. And I want to compare it column over column. Okay. And I think I'm going to start with just one value. Okay. Then I'm going to turn that into a line chart. All right. So here I can see comparing each of the different types of items. I can compare them month over month. All right. So this is so I can see the trends that are going on throughout the year. All right. Now, I may say this is a little hard to see over, and I want to be able to combine. So I might look at this and go, again, I want to play with that visualization a little more. What if I made it an area chart instead? Area chart's kind of the best of both worlds. It fills in more. But I want to be able to get per month what my highest number is over all time, so make it stacked. So this allows you to, again, really play with your design. And you can, again, make it look better, so forth. And I don't like this over here. I might put it to the left. All right. So again, I don't have to worry about the numbers at this point. All I have to worry about is the visualization giving me the information? And the area chart is giving me the benefit of the line chart, so you can see trends, combined with the stacked nature of being able to kind of see total. What are my total past due sales each month? All right. I'm going to look at engagement, do one more. Membership engagement is just looking at item description. So in this case, I could do a comparative. I'm going to, I'm going to drag and drop this onto my final. Okay. Go into my final and edit this. Turn it into a column chart. And we're good to go. Okay. So those are the benefit. That's the benefit between having a pivot for proof and then being able to bring it over. Because if I don't like something, I can always copy the pivot over again. I can also try it in different views. So I can say, I want this in a column chart, but maybe that's not how I want it. So let's see how it looks. As a stacked column. Or we'll do a bar design stacked. Okay. Doesn't really make sense that way. But that one's interesting, being able to see total amount broken up in a stack. So you can start playing with and seeing, do I like does member engagement this way tell me what I need to see faster, or does member engagement this way tell me what I need to see faster? All right. So that is the visualization part. You have a lot of different visualizations. There are grouped by type. And there's a lot of guidelines out there that can help you decide which type is the best. But sometimes it's just practice. Okay. But when all else fails, just use interpretive dance. Okay. It always works. All right. Color cues. So it's another important point. Don't go crazy with colors. It's not a rave. You're not going into a 1990s splash house with all the paint splattered everywhere. You want to be minimal with your color, because color is going to have a strong impact on how someone reads something. Sisense does have best practices built in. For example, a column chart with one value, all the categories are going to be the same color. A column chart with two values, all of the categories will be same color. There'll be one color per value. And a column chart with a break by limits to one value with the break by multiple colors. Just kind of give you a view on that. Sisense provides. This is quantity, month over month quantity, or sorry, month over month amount, month over month amount and quantity. Amount, so you get the same sort of basic pattern here. You're seeing the same pattern, broken by item, and quantity broken by item. Okay. So these colors have meaning, and when you're looking at them, you don't want to have too many. Too many colors actually distract. So there is no reason, and it's actually detrimental if you have just months, to make every single month its own color in a basic bar chart. Another one, keep in mind color blindness. Red and green, orange and blue can look very similar and be hard to distinguish for those who are colorblind. But there are specific orange and blues that can be put together that go around the color blindness. I have found many people who are orange and blue. If you do happen to know that you have dashboard readers who are colorblind, know that there are now default palettes that there are 3 colorblind focus palettes. So again, orange and blue do work within a series. There are some who are colorblind to those as well. But there are, sorry, hitting the wrong one. There are 3 colorblind palettes provided with Sisense that will help people be able to distinguish between categories if they're colorblind. Right. And finally, people want to group by color. So if a color represents an apple in one chart and oranges in another chart, it could lead to confusion. This is an example I have of this here. So in this bar chart, I have general admission and banquet rate, and this is the auto assigned. I didn't do anything. I didn't change the color. All right. In this chart, I added 50% reciprocal, and I manually edited the color. I changed banquet recital to be teal, the color that general admission was before, and I added general admission and made it red. If somebody wasn't looking at the label and they were just glancing from here to there, they would think that general admission in this now becomes a smaller slice of this other composition, this other pie, when in reality it's only 1% difference. So that is where you want to be very careful. You want to keep the same color palette. Sisense will do this for you. For example, here we have banquet, it's blue, and we have banquet, it's blue. What you'll want to watch for, though, are things like this. This is amount, irrelevant is blue, and purple is quantity, so that's fine, blue, blue, purple. But quantity here is not the same as purple here. So you need to keep in mind of what you're saying and what your colors are. And if you feel that those mistakes may be made, that you clearly label. that there's a difference in color, or change the colors up here. Make those a different palette so that they see amount and quantity as separate from any of the other colors. All right. So now you have all your widgets ready. And you have tons of widgets, and they're all ready. And you're pretty exhausted because you've spent all this time just putting the data together, getting the widgets together. So it's time to go hit the liquor store and drink. Or it's time for layout. So there are some important rules to layout that will make your dashboard more dynamic. The first one is to identify the most important information. It's the 5-second rule. You want them to be able to get the most important information in 5 seconds. It goes in the top left corner. Keep in mind the inverted pyramid and Z pattern layout, which I'll go over. And also keep the number of widgets to 7 to 9 per dashboard. There's 2 reasons for this. One is just the ability to digest it. Also, if you get past that, it becomes slower and slower to load the dashboard. Okay. In newer versions of Sisense, newer releases, they are loading from top to bottom, so you don't see that impact as much. In older versions, they'd load everything in sort of different order, so you would see that impact. But keeping 7 to 9 keeps it concise, fast, easy to load, and easy to digest. So the inverted pyramid is a journalism concept where you want to put the most noteworthy information at the very beginning of an article. Important details come next, and then general background information that people may not even get to read go at the bottom. That translates into dashboards with the indicators perhaps at the top, your key indicators and key metrics, your trends next, and then details. If you have to scroll to the details, that's okay, because chances are it already is well outside of the 5-second rule, and people are going to be looking for that information, so they expect to scroll. Also want to keep in concept the Z pattern or Z layout. Z pattern is a graphic design concept. It's been around for a long time in print, for a long time in graphic posters. It was adopted early on in web design for key web designs. It's actually why we have headers and footers in web design with the content in the center. And the concept is that you are looking across a screen or a poster or a page in the letter Z. So you're going to start in the top left, go across to the top right, go down diagonally to the bottom left, and finish on the bottom right. So this is where you want to put your information, highest priority to lowest priority as well. And there's also places that people don't really pay attention. So you don't want to put any major information in these areas that I've put the little do not disturb signs on. In this case, in this design, I've used them for additional information, the legends for these. But I've kept the main trends, the main charts in the center, in that center vision track. Okay. Key metrics, center vision, another important chart, detail about this chart. All right. And that is the final layout that I did for my annual membership analysis. Okay. You can see here I have 8 widgets, so I'm right within that 7 to 9. It loads quickly, I can read it quickly, and it's all ready to go with that Z pattern. And in this case, I don't have any scroll. When it's on a smaller screen, there is a little scroll that occurs. Okay. So the key takeaways of this design process is build trust in the data through those pivot proofs. They are really one of the best tools that you can use to trust and test your data. Pick the visualization that conveys your message. There are scientific standards out there. Keep in mind how people absorb information through the inverted pyramid and the Z pattern. And don't overcrowd your dashboard. If you have more than 9, you can put it on another dashboard. You can put it at the bottom for them to scroll to. You could do a jump to. You can, separate it out. All right. So you have a dashboard. You're almost done. We need to go through to the look what I made for you dashboard review and acceptance. All right. So dashboard acceptance. Throughout this process, you've already elicited feedback from clients. So you've collaborated on requirements documentation. You've documented and verified it. You built trust through the technical specifications and the privet proofs. They know you're listening to them because you've met with them and you've communicated and written and seen and spoken. Okay. So now you're ready to present and get feedback. Some do's of this. Schedule a presentation, get in front of the colleagues with your dashboard. Before you do that though, have handy documentation to discuss any data elements that you had to customize, okay? That could include formulas, data that you had to create a field in answers, use one of the customized fields. Anything that may not be apparent, have documented, have right there. That could just be your technical specification. It depends on how well you can read through that, okay? Leave time to discuss some edits and filters in that presentation because some things might jump off immediately, and also give them time for review. Okay, so leave it with them and say, okay, review this, get back to me. Set a deadline for acceptance and go live. You'll need a deadline, but also keep in mind that people do have other things to do, so they may, you may have to make that acceptance, a month later because everyone's going to a conference for 2 weeks. Remind your colleagues that it's a reiterative process so that they can edit and edit. And then limit scope creep. New metrics, if they haven't been found out in the functional specification, this technical specification, they can wait. They can go into the next dashboard or they can go into the next iteration of this dashboard. So you've gotten through that, they've accepted it, it's all happy. It's time for the happy dance and you've completed everything and you're ready to go live. So what we recommend is that you set up a separate account for all your production dashboards. For example, in this case, I'm going to use our answers@jcainc.com account to be the production dashboard location. I've been designing everything in my own user. The account could be an alias of a list of people who may be owners of the dashboard or only the DBA that is completely dependent on your organizational structure. In our case, answers@jcainc.com goes to our entire support team. So everybody can jump on it. So I'm going to show you this in the process. You switch the ownership of your dashboard to the production account, and then you need to log into the production account to share the dashboard for distribution. Okay. So I have my final dashboard here, and I'm going to share it with answers@jcainc.com, demo dashboards owner, and I'm going to change this to make owner. All right. So at this point, I hit save. It's going to make sure, are you sure? Do they have that? Okay. And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. I know this person has it. I want to transfer ownership. All right. So at this point, this becomes a shared dashboard on my side. I can still look at it. I can still edit it and so forth. But the owner is now the demo dashboard user. So now I need to sign out of here and sign in as Answers. And I know from my functional specification that this needed to go to the marketing director as an email with a PDF. So here's my dashboard. And this time again, I'm going to share it. I'm going to add my publishing. So I want a PDF attachment. I want this in letter format. And I don't like how all of this is looking, so I'm going to move some things around here. a little. And I may go in and change things even more, but it's going to move some things around. Okay. And actually, maybe I'll like it up. There we go. That looks better. If I make it landscape. Okay. Now I have one nice PDF of my dashboard. I can save this. I'm going to have it send every Monday and every Friday at, sorry, not AM. Let's do it first thing in the morning, 9 AM. Okay. And then I need to select who's going to get it. Keturah is going to be our membership director. So she can view it, and she also is going to get that email. By clicking that, she gets it. I, the original designer, can see it, but I don't need it in my inbox, so I leave this unchecked for me. I hit republish. Share.
Alexis, we have a question.
Yep.
How do you set up an alias?
So an alias is set up is by your domain, by the people who set up your email account, and it's different depending on what kind of email your site has. So I will get back to you on more specifics of that because I know I'm not explaining it very well, but it's something done by your email administrator. Okay, and then it's just another email that you're adding as a normal user on the system. All right. So that is, by the way, the end of the production process. And you now get to do your happy dance. And the key takeaways of this are the teamwork improves the acceptance process, present and discuss the dashboard, be ready for edits, and enjoy your new dashboards designed with business intelligence. So I know you guys all have questions, and we are here for you. I'll be here as long as you need me. I know some of you may have to drop off, but it is now time for questions, for more questions.
If any of you have questions, you can type them in and I'll try to get you an answer.
So summertime is over for you. Steve, is that you?
I do see one here from Alec of what's wrong with raves. Nothing is wrong with raves. They're a lot of fun. They just don't, unfortunately, belong on your dashboard.
That's correct. Deeper question from Carolyn.
Okay.
I'm looking for a link for more complex formulas, year-to-date results over several years in the same widget.
Okay. So you're looking for documentation. I will send that out. Some specific links to more complex formulas, and also in the survey, we are asking. We have some lists of particular topics for the next dashboard training, as well as a place to put those for those. But we can send more complex year-to-date results over several years in the same widget. Yeah.
And Alec is asking about Galaxy data. Expected guests from the orders table. Are these order quantities? Then balances over revenue. Alec, are you talking about the example that we were just looking at of the membership analysis?
I think he's asking more of a detailed. So the expected guest field comes from, in the order tab, there is a there's a visitor group, visitors, expected guests field, number of visitors. It's a table. It's in OE group visits. And so that is manually typed in, okay, by the end user. It doesn't have to be, but it is available to be manually typed in. So it is not order quantities. Order quantities would just be your quantity from GX issued sales grouped by order ID. Okay. Balance is the issued minus payments. Sorry, so no, balance is, yeah, issued minus payments, I believe. Balance should match the balance field in the, on the order screen itself. Okay, and then in answers, you have issued and unissued that you can report in one. Okay. Katie, if you have a budget that you would like reflected as comparison versus actual, is it possible to import the budget into the dashboard? Yes, the most common place to do that is to, well, depending on your source system, is to either put it in as an attribute. So in Galaxy, there are attributes on items, events, chart of accounts, and so forth. So you can put it in as an attribute. Instead, or you can do, we can work with you to add a table that you may update via Access. That's another way we've done it. We actually have clients who are on this call who've done that, where they import their budget into a table and we connect it in to the correct data place in the ElastiCube. And in that case, they update, they usually use like Microsoft Access to update that every year if they don't want to go into do it as an attribute. Okay, so it is possible. It does typically take a little bit of DBA work.
I don't see any more questions. I want to thank everyone who's still here. If you do have a question, ask it now. If you formulate your question later, please email us at answers@jcainc.com. That email address is right there on the screen, and we'll help you as soon as we can. We definitely want to help you. We're here for you. If you can't find a definition, figure out a formula, or locate a field, please let us know. Or if you need anything else,